In this region interview, we meet with Michael Arbon and Samantha McGrail, who are both representing United Australia Party, UAP, in the upcoming federal election. We find out what motivates them, what drives them, what persuaded them to run for political office, and if they were elected to the Parliament in Canberra, what they might bring to the table. We try and understand a little bit more about their party, but in particular we talk to the values and ethics that they think are important and how they can make a difference should they be elected. So we'll introduce Michael and Sam. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Michael, let's start with you because I think you've got some sort of organisational role in the party.
Yeah, so I'm the lead Senate candidate in South Australia, and by default I've become somewhat of a party leader in the States. So I'm the go-to guy. Yeah, I know, right? It generally works out that way. But look, I'm the eldest of 7 children in my family. So throughout my life, I've always had that leadership role in anything that I do. I've got 5 younger sisters and 1 younger brother. So that just seems to be the role that I generally fall into.
Yeah. You're in a new family now.
I am a new family, and a great family with members just like Sam. So it's really encouraging to see just a bunch of real people who have not had political experience trying to do something to make our country better.
Sam, you've worked with families with disabilities and...
I have in disability and mental health.
So there's a family theme here going on.
Very much so, very much so.
Is that one of the values or the qualities of UAP?
I think it is. We're quite united. We all stand together and want to move forward to help Australia out.
People have the perceptions of political parties that they're kind of machines and,
no,
shining,
We're all grassroots people.
That's right. And I guess the best thing about the United Australia Party is that we haven't been around and we don't have those factions and those sort of traditional paths that people follow into politics. So I'm a small business owner, I've got my own staff, and Sam also runs her own business. So, we've come from the real world straight into the deep end.
You're not political careerists, is that what?
No, but we feel...
You didn't work in somebody's office?
No, 2 years ago if somebody said you'd be doing this now, I would have thought there was something quite...
Okay. Well, that's kind of encouraging for people who are watching this because... politics is this thing that you look at through a shop window and you go, well, that's not me, or I don't understand it. But what you're saying is this is coming out of the heart, I guess.
Yep.
Is it?
Absolutely. We're all giving up 4 or 5 months of our lives full time to absolutely give it our best shot. And I'm the same. I've got 3 young children, 5, 3 and 1. There's no way at this stage in my life.
I thought you looked tired.
Yes. Well, if you think I'm tired, my wife's 10 times as tired because she's got 4 children. She's got me as well.
Now you've got a campaign on top of this, which is 4 or 5 months of really intense.
Absolutely right, but it's for the right cause, and we believe that if things go our way, which we're doing everything to make sure that they do, that we can make a change and we can present some real conservative and some mainstream Australian values back into politics.
You mentioned conservative there.
Yep.
Sam, is that a theme or a flavour through the party? Because I'm not that familiar with the policies and the kind of the intent of the party. So maybe you could explain that to people.
No, I think it is a conservative basis for the party. And what we want for the party is what's best for the Australian people. Over the past 2 years, there's been an erosion of pretty much your rights of everything. So whether it be freedom of movement, speech, religion, choice, body autonomy, we've lost those in little snippets here and there. And the United Australian Party want to bring that back and put the people first.
That's good.
And the Christian base of the party is probably not something I expected. So I was yelling at the TV a lot last year and my wife said do something about it. So I decided to apply to be a candidate with UAP, and I chose the UAP because traditionally most of us have been sort of Liberal Party supporters, voters or members. But the UAP was probably the closest thing to what the Liberal Party should be, but they're not acting like. But one of the fringe benefits I've found is, as we've gone around the state over the last few months, is when I have those conversations in the crowd, most people are there because they feel like God is telling them to do something, to be involved politically, because our Judeo-Christian values, they have been eroded at a rapid rate of change over the last few years. And it is up to strong Christians to stand up and have a voice and not be silent and make some change.
Across the country,
it is,
but also in politics. It's really interesting because to me it suggests that it's not really a left-right continuum divide thing anymore, because that's what most people looked at Australian politics and say, oh, he's on the left or she's on the right or whatever. But it's more about values. It's more about ethics and the strategic intent of government. And I use that big term, strategic intent, because I'm suggesting that there's a strategic direction and intent in governments which may not be aligned with Judeo-Christian values, and so it's drawing people like yourselves into the space.
It's almost like there's a determined effort through the woke agenda to dissolve Christian values from Australia. It's a direct attack, absolutely. My children are just entering the school system, and as soon as you get a little taste of the school system compared to what I had, and I was only in school, 20 odd years ago, it is a completely different space. Absolutely, yeah. Well, actually a little bit under 20, so maybe not quite the same, but yeah, once you have a look at the agendas that are being pushed through the school systems, it's very, very concerning, and I believe that Sam and I are both doing this for our children. That's what we want.
My daughter's in senior level now at school, my youngest, and what Michael said about what they're pushing, it's disgraceful.
So you want to do something, we've got to do something, we've got to take a stand and push back on our values. And we do that through, in part, media, but also through the political process.
Yeah, and on the basic freedoms thing, for the last 2 years, a lot of the Australian population has stood up against the erosion of essential freedoms, but we've protested an awful lot. We've tried it through the court system for time after time after time, and it keeps falling over. So we really have to beat them at their own game, and we believe that politically we need to step up, and good people need to start running for parliament, good people that haven't been through the political system but want our country to be better, and that's what we believe we're part of.
Sam, you don't have, as you say, a background in politics or government, disability services or care. So you're someone with some empathy and grassroots, like you say.
Very much grassroots.
So what's the number one thing for you that you that concerns or alarms you, that apart from the education system, which is talking about?
One of the other things is the freedom of choice.
Right.
So we've lost that ability, and I always refer back even to say freedom of movement, which is not too bad now, but after this election, we don't know what will happen.
At the moment.
At the moment, yes. So after this next election, let's say, God forbid, if Liberal Labor do get back in and that freedom of movement is changed again, where are we then? We're an island. There's nowhere we can go. So that, along with there's very high suicide rates. So mental health is quite a huge issue for me.
In the young or?
In both, across the board.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's a topic that needs to be widely discussed.
Yeah.
Yes, people started to talk about it, that there's some sort of build-up of mental health. Can you talk to that briefly?
There are a lot of clients that I might support or work with or know through in that area that are suffering immensely from this. Their choices, the masks, a lot of them due to their intellectual disabilities, don't understand.
Right.
So they're also saying with young children, their ability of learning is being stagnated because they can't read people's facial expressions. You can't see people's mouths move. So their speech development, there goes from that. Yeah. So it encompasses a wide variety of aspects.
And I guess because of what you're doing, both of you, for slightly different reasons, I imagine, what you're suggesting, I think, by that is that the people who are currently in this building behind us in Canberra are not connected to those realities, not aware of those realities.
They're so far removed from the everyday Australian, they have no idea. Some of them most probably wouldn't even know the average cost of a loaf of bread.
Or the Reserve Bank interest rate.
There you go.
Yeah. Look, one thing that absolutely should have happened throughout the pandemic is when the average person was taken away from their job, businesses were closed down and incomes were taken away, those who represent us in Canberra should have also gone on JobKeeper. Because if they went on $1,500 a fortnight, they would have felt the same pain as the Australian people.
We're in this together.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, absolutely. How many times have we heard that? Yes. Yeah, we're all in this together unless we are of a higher value to society and we're a politician. And same thing can be seen for mandates. So it's one rule for us, one rule for them. You're not mandated as a member of parliament.
I remember when in Queensland, the CHO was saying when she drove to work this week, there was a ruling that you had to stay off the roads with your car. when I drove to work this morning, there were too many cars on the road. So it was all right for her to drive to work.
Oh,
Yeah.
all for thee and a rule for me.
Yeah. Just a little interesting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Michael, you're the lead candidate in the Senate.
Correct. Yes.
And what are your chances? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I'm in with a really good chance. The support that we're seeing right around the state is much greater than we would have ever expected.
So what's the one thing you're hearing? Is there a message?
Yeah, so the most consistent message that I hear is that the Liberal Party has departed their base, and the Liberal Party supporters have jumped onto the UAP in droves. Now, it's not just limited to the Liberal Party. We have members that have joined us from Labor and, believe it or not, the Greens. So we have members from right across.
That I don't believe.
No, we do. So when I talk to those members and say, how would you jump from the Greens to the UAP? The one thing that they say is, we supported the Greens because, we like trees and we like the Great Barrier Reef and those sorts of things. But then they said, over the past 2 years, we've realised they're pretty much communists. So, they're labelled the Greens, which is a very good marketing plan, but if they were called the Reds, no one would support them. So some people have realised that when they've had their job taken away or their essential freedoms taken away, they're like, hang on, these guys want this to be more permanent.
Well, that brings us to an interesting point, at least in my mind, because the major parties, and I'll put the Greens in there, there's blue, there's red, there's green, okay? The major parties, the dominant parties, have become this sort of blancmange. There's this, it's hard to distinguish what they really, how they differentiate. At a recent state election, in one of the lower house seats, the Liberals recommended the Greens as their first preference, and that's pretty shocking when you see that on How to Vote. But it's hard for people to distinguish. So I guess if you're saying you're getting some leakage from Greens and from Labor and from Liberal, they're moving across because of what?
Yeah, I think largely they want people to represent them who have lived in the real world, who have felt the pains of everyday life and can reflect that in Canberra. I think Canberra's become a bit of an elite class of people who have been through the system of studying arts or law and being political staffers or union members and then being pre-selected into a safe seat. The mission of the United Australia Party and a bunch of other parties, to give them credit, is to make sure that there's no such thing as a safe seat. We need our politicians to be worried about losing their seat at every election. And what that will make them do is they will represent mainstream Australia again, instead of getting stuck into this bubble where they think that they're invincible. We need our politicians always looking over their shoulder and thinking, hey, if I don't do the right thing here, the people will vote me out.
So you've got people who are waking up, for a better description, politically, socially, culturally, and looking for a home.
Yeah.
A home for their vote.
Yep.
Yeah. So in your case, you're contesting the seat of Mayor, federal seat of Mayor, which is in, those people are not aware, it's in the Adelaide Hills. It's quite a large.
It goes from Birdwood through to Kangaroo Island.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge. And up against the city member who is?
Rebecca Sharkey.
Who was framed as an independent, is that?
Framed as an independent, but sponsored by Climate 200.
So Climate 200. But she was originally with the Liberal Party and then moved.
She was, and moved across, and now
moved across again. Is that what?
Oh no, well now she's just stating she's independent. In my view, you believe that when she's sponsored by Climate 200, which is Greens, and then funnels through to Labor.
And has a tendency to vote Labor.
Labor, 2/3 of the time. Ms Sharkey votes Labor.
So it's really about how people vote in the House when the big issues go down. So people need to be
aware of how she actually votes,
so that'll be
and how she's representing the electorate of Mayo.
Okay, so you'll be standing against Rebecca Sharkey, and there would be other candidates.
At the current time, there's a Liberal, Labor, and Green candidate.
Okay, maybe some others to nominate in the next week or so. All right, so that's going to be a fairly tough gig, because the independents, I mean, maybe because of what you just said, Mike, that people are looking for a home, and the independents might be, more attractive if they are indeed independent.
Yes, but what's important when you are considering voting for an independent or any party, I recommend that everyone in Australia get to know who your candidates are and what they individually stand for, because you're not voting for a party, you're not just voting for a random independent, you're voting for a person to represent you in Canberra. What does that person stand for? What are their social values? That's really, really important.
I mean, I know there are conscious votes, but they're rare. Most of the time it's voting by party. But if people are looking for a candidate who can actually represent who they are in terms of their ethics and their values. They need to know the candidate and actually encourage the candidate to stand for them.
Absolutely.
And not just fall into the party. But this is a malaise through Australian politics generally, I think.
Yep.
I'm not quite sure what the solution is short term, but we do need, one of the solutions is better candidates with real passion to stand.
A real everyday life.
And real experience.
Real people.
Yeah. And more Australians joining political parties and attending meetings and voicing their concerns and helping to guide policy from the grassroots up. So if you just vote on election day, you don't actually achieve a lot in politics. But if you're a member of a party, and I actually don't care what party you join, but join a party, get involved, help them formulate policy and provide direct feedback to that member of parliament, because lobby groups, we know they get their ways, and most of them are minorities, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease. We need to learn from what they do and do the same thing. You need to be louder and involved.
Well, you just mentioned meetings there. How can people engage with you guys and ask you the tough questions?
Yeah, well, we're out there every single day. We held a forum in Victor Harbour on Friday.
Yeah.
Yep.
So a lot of us are holding meet and greets, or we're going out into electorate to meet with the our local constituents.
So you're not afraid,
catching up with
not afraid to
coffees.
front the people?
No, you jump on YouTube. I uploaded our whole conversation at Victor Harbour on Friday night. It went for 44 minutes, and we only stop when they stop asking questions. So we will continue to ask questions for as long as the people have them.
That's good to hear, because that's another area of politics where it's become a fairly confected, constructed kind of environment.
Yes.
And the real questions can't get asked.
No.
So that's good.
We're more than happy to be upfront, and if we don't know something, we'll be honest about it and say that we don't. But
which I certainly will.
yeah. But we don't think there's anything that we can't learn.
No.
We're more than happy.
Very quick learner.
How many candidates like you in this state?
There's 10.
10.
South Australia.
Okay.
10 in the House and 2 Senate candidates.
Okay. So you have someone running, mate?
Yeah, Caleb's running second behind me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a good portfolio.
Yeah, we're running in every seat in the nation, as well as multiple Senate candidates in every state.
Okay, well, speaking of nation, one nation,
Yep.
how do you guys, because somebody watching this might say, well, this is UAP, and I did that, and Craig Kelly and so on.
Yeah.
How do you see yourselves as different from, distinct from One Nation?
I'd start from the fact that we have a common enemy, which is the major party duopoly system. So One Nation, just like us, they're an underdog. They're fighting against that entrenched system. So they really are. We have very similar values when it comes to essential freedoms, but I would say that our policy platform when it comes to responsible management of federal government debt, when it comes to protecting homeowners from rising interest rates and making sure that our economy grows and becomes a focus on putting our nation first. So our policies are all centred around Australia first and becoming more self-sufficient.
An economic dryness there.
Yes.
Baked into you.
Yeah, and our finance team with Clive Palmer and Dominic Martino, the former CEO of Deloitte's in Sydney, very well credentialed, used to dealing with big numbers, but more importantly, used to dealing with foreign powers and especially communist countries, used to dealing with them and actually getting their way. So we think that's a real strength for us. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's really good to have you here for a quick chat. Wish you well. And you've got a challenge on your hands with that seat.
And I'm more than willing to take that on.
Yeah, but what do the people stand for? What motivates the people to actually give up 4 or 5 months of their life, to hardly get any sleep, to take criticism and difficult questions, to be victims of abuse in some cases, verbal abuse? But what motivates these people, and what can motivate us as the voters to actually get involved in the political process and become part of the solution for this country, not just sit on the sidelines and criticise, but actually try and make a difference. So we wish you well.
Thanks
for coming in, and all the best.
Thank you very much.